Yeah, it's pretty brutal. I've been to Coachella. It's
I've actually never been, so I live in Palm Springs. I've never been to Coachella. I'm just dealing with all the annoying traffic.
I went before it became a social media thing.
That's when I wanted to go, back in the day when there were good bands and
Exactly.
now it's all, ugh,
Got to see Weezer in person.
that's awesome. They're touring again this summer. Or actually, they just did, but I think they're doing it again, but yeah, they just did in October. And yeah, they are doing somewhere else. I don't want to take up too many.
Question for you. Oh, you okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Are you going to need,
Yes.
are you doing a presentation on
Yes.
Facebook?
Yes.
And you're also going to be presenting up here?
Those are just kind of show and tell.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So
Lots of-
our system is we're gonna stream this for the people that can't physically hear.
Oh, good.
It'll pull the feed directly from the TV, so the presentation will be highlighted.
Great.
What I can do is I can do a picture,
Okay.
in case you want to show things.
Okay.
We'll have to do that.
Yeah, that's great.
It'll be easier than switching back and forth. So.
Okay. Now, as far as a cable, I forgot, I have a converter
Well, look,
board
here they
and I
have
forgot.
steaks.
I have we have a light.
Oh, good, because I have only like a lightning or USB
Oh.
outlet.
We got you.
Awesome, thank you. For some reason, when they make these new laptops, they have a lot less,
Yeah, I mean,
Ports and-
they're basically forcing everyone to be USB-C, which
yeah, you're
in
right.
the end, once we all, there it is. Once it happens, it'll be good. But we still have-
The interim.
So you can plug that in.
Okay.
Oh, man.
And you turn on that.
It's toasted Italiano.
There.
I'll need. Toasted Italiano.
Looks like you're ready.
You do around here, Gil?
You might have figured out one of these before.
Kind of far,
Come on,
but-
this is two.
Yeah, I'm in the south. It's like about 25 miles. Oh, really?
So the only thing is, I have
How
a
long is it drive?
YouTube video in
Well,
here.
25 miles. Well, this time of year, it's taking me about 45
If
minutes,
I'm
but
not connected
once I get
to
into my
internet,
routine, it won't take
so
me long.
is
Like
there
I said, I usually
Wi-Fi
get in at 5,
going
5:30 in the
Yes,
morning.
absolutely. There is, it's actually easy.
I gotta get-
Go to Whack
Work
Guest,
with so many people.
and the
Yeah.
password is Whack Guest, all caps without.
What is this? Hibiscus tea?
Hibiscus tea. They brought Jamaica.
Is this garden, does this mean it's
Vegetarian.
vegetarian?
That's my guess.
Yeah, we did like a variety because of
Okay.
Good Friday, Good Friday.
Thank
Lent.
you.
Yeah.
Is this gonna
Well,
be
that
like
was Brian.
Yeah, that's
Brian
why.
remembered Lent.
It's
He's
gonna-
like,
it's
just
gonna be
in
on YouTube.
case. I'm like,
Okay,
okay.
perfect. I have to go through that
It's
email.
like a line card or something?
So this is actually like a capabilities brochure. So it just goes into more detail
Yeah, but-
about.
More
I didn't
stress
track
than
that,
I
but
think
I
it's
think
628 unread emails. So I'm
I'm
a zero email
Western
person.
region
I
for
have
these
zero
to
unread.
cover.
I understand. I'm the same
Oh,
way.
really?
But
So
I'm like a new.
I have
so-
to
Okay.
watch it
Yeah.
while I go through. and-
Yeah, so we do, you know,
Like
these
for that's
quiz
why I'm
kits,
like, is
piping
this gonna be
packages,
streaming? So I'm gonna
balance
go to my
valves,
desk.
Okay.
all
and watch
for,
it.
I
I'm
sent-
like, I'm just gonna grab something to eat, but I am gonna watch.
data
I sent the
centers,
link
we're
to-
doing, like,
to
standstill
Brian.
valves for data
Uh-huh.
centers.
If he doesn't send it, I'll just plug it.
Oh,
Piping
perfect.
packages, like, so these are piping
They
packages
come in
for
this
like
little.
D&D. Yeah, so we put them on, so all the piping packages will be on this skim board, which, you know, yeah, we can do like a stainless steel dog tag, like you see there, or it'll just be like, right here, or it'll just be like a paper tag.
I'm gonna be watching it from my desk.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I can't be here, but.
That's okay, but listen, I brought some ladies' shirts, so
Oh,
please help
thank
yourself to a
you.
shirt, I got some mugs. I said, there might be some ladies, I'm gonna bring some ladies' shirts, just in case. So, yeah, so,
You have a large?
yep, right there.
These are the ladies?
Yeah, there's ladies, if they say ladies or ladies, otherwise, yeah, so otherwise they're gonna be men's. Yeah, help yourself.
Thank
You
you.
brought all the goodies.
Yeah,
That's awesome, thank
we
you.
get fit in, right?
Yeah.
I have to go through someone's email
Yeah, no worries.
and watch.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you. I'll be watching from my desk.
Okay, great,
Thank
thanks.
you so much.
Hopefully more people will trickle in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no worries, we have time to set up all the swag anyway.
Swag, yeah.
Quickly.
There should be some, I definitely packed a bunch of extra larges, so there are just,
I
unfortunately,
think
you have to
Brian's
look on the
gonna.
collar.
Oh.
See late. Which is a little hard to read, but
You found it.
yeah, there you go.
You don't start on time.
You know what, the early birds get all the fun goodies, right?
Yeah.
It needs to be punctual.
Pays to be punctual.
Oh, you got shirts too?
Yeah, we get shirts, we get large, extra large, we get some ladies shirts in there.
I'm gonna be able to fit
You don't need to fit into a ladies large, you get plenty.
it. Not a ladies large. And then
Oh, men's large.
extra large.
Oh, extra, yeah, we definitely have extra large. That should be extra large, I think.
Yeah, I would definitely love to go see Weezer again.
Yeah, they're really good, I like them a lot. I saw them years ago.
Reminder that the
with
new
Flaming
fluid
Lips.
control
Ooh, Flaming Lips, I love
about to
Flaming
begin.
Lips.
Again,
What's that?
reminder
I love
that
the
Dave's
Flaming
Fluid
Lips.
Lunch Alert is about to begin in the WTF. Thank you.
Was that recent, the Flaming Lips?
No, it was not recent at all, it was quite a while ago. But they're touring again together, so
I was gonna
that
ask
might
if
be
you
what
had
you're
a
thinking of.
vendor. I, like a couple months ago, he was like, oh, I'm gonna see Weezer with the Flaming Lips.
Oh, cool. Yeah, in October, I think.
Yeah,
I was gonna go, but I was on the East Coast. There were like all these good shows playing around that time too. I just remember like October 11th, it was like, there was a festival with like Liz Fair and all these kind of like 90s people, and then there was like Weezer, and it was all October 11th, because they played Acrisure October 11th, which is right by me. I live in Palm Springs and it's in Palm Desert.
cool.
Like that would be great, but unfortunately, I was in New Jersey for my.
So you're Gen X.
I am a Gen X.
Yeah, you sound very much a Gen X. I know my own kind.
More of the same.
We can smell our own.
Exactly.
For us, right?
You smell like patchouli and flannel.
Nice to meet you.
Ryan is not.
Good stuff.
Oh, you can make it. Wow.
Yeah. Swag is fun.
I do want to see how much.
You want a nice cocktail, hibiscus tea, a little bit of cranberry juice, and some vodka.
Okay.
Over ice. I said cocktail.
Yeah, you said a cocktail.
What was the middle thing you said? This-
Cranberry juice. Cranberry juice and hibiscus tea go really well. They like accentuate each other.
that, yeah.
Yeah, I'll go with it. I didn't fully screw on it with it. I'm gonna try the black tea. Let's see where I sit.
All right.
I think go with the hibiscus, I think.
We'll take it.
Got a men's Bible studies in this one month. Right at my house. Well, you have it? Yeah. it was good. So that's fun. And then, Saturday night, we're getting together, my family, for my wife's birthday, my birthday, and our anniversary. So we're going over to our house for my friend. Thanks. Your birthday? Yeah, which was like a month ago. Yeah.
Happy belated.
Still celebrating. Yeah, I'll celebrate all year. I'm
Why
happy-
not?
Happy to be alive.
Why not?
Yeah. Not that
It was rather than
I have a near-death experience.
balance my cup on my box.
Always good,
The sweet treat on the box.
Just be grateful for another day. Yeah. Yes, we're doing a lot of.
I feel like I've heard,
I'm
I'm gonna try to check.
Oh, I heard it. Hamburgers tonight,
one do you
and
ask
then
about
doing
Friday?
steaks tomorrow. And then
Chicken fontaine.
I'm so curious as to what it is.
I'm gonna get what we'll call it. I had
Also,
the steak
bought a
and
bunch of
arugula
meat,
sandwich
beef
in there, and I like that.
I normally, I like the nuts, which is over here, but they had like a Fiesta chicken.
Yeah.
You like that?
I'm like, I guess I'm gonna try.
All right, I got your screen to show.
You do have the chicken fried here, I wanna see what.
So whenever you're ready,
Okay.
I'll let you
just
know.
give me a holler.
Let me know how spicy that much. I'll go.
I think I did.
What?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's my.
Here we are.
Hello.
Strong.
Dude, they bought
That's kind of.
This might break.
So I was given a smoker like 3 years ago for Christmas. Because I was like, oh, a lot of people around here do that. I could get into that. Like, I just did my first. Didn't open it until January of this year.
How are you?
And then I started doing it. And I'm saying, I don't think I'm making. Like, this is
You grab one.
Friday.
Oh, is it a
Michael, nice to meet you.
It's no, it's
Salad?
it's like a
Yeah.
lot with the resistant heater.
Thank you. How'd you know my name?
And then I
Oh.
still burn it. It's not like
I'm psychic.
Yeah.
it's a good
You probably could pull that on me.
So I will.
I'm just
Yes,
like, you look like a Caleb. That's
Yeah.
Caleb or
Got a
Caleb?
hole in the
Caleb.
side
Caleb, yeah, you
and
look like a
put
Caleb, that's
ammo
what I got.
can
Yeah, I'll take it.
that I put pellets so I can feed pellets.
And a
to the
psychic,
side
right?
of the front.
Yes, exactly. I'm gonna grab some hibiscus tea,
I
because it
would like
sounds so
to-
interesting, right?
Pretty good. The whole engineering.
It sounds good, I like hibiscus tea.
It needs a
So
little.
that's why I wanted like the cheapest one, is like, then I could kind of figure out what to like, which I think I've learned, I'm not sure how much
I
of
have
it.
so much time.
Well, that's.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah.
What kind of meat?
It's like before this
So I
job,
thought
I was more active.
it's
Now
top round
I'm
or
sitting
like
in the
broil?
computer a lot.
Top round.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was
Well,
doing.
maybe
I know
how
you
feel.
feel.
I'm a field
guy.
Yeah.
Running around everywhere.
It was on trying to get some sort of standing desk situation.
So I went to the butcher and was like, hey,
Yeah.
can
I
you
didn't
slice
need to
this
get
into
like a
1/8 inch,
one
quarter
of those
inch
like
slices, and
bound
I sliced it
bubble
all.
boards, so you can still
I
kind
don't
of
know,
like
I've
use
never
the
done it
motion.
before, so we'll see.
I just
if I ever do
When I
it.
went to like a office supply, they're out, and
What is it, a
I had
ball board?
I forget what they
Like
call
sit on it?
boards.
I think you
Yeah,
use
sit
the
on it.
vibrator or something.
I think Joey
Yeah.
did. I don't know about you might have had it as well, but yeah, they're like a balance board, and
Yeah.
so you.
Okay, I seen the ball.
Yeah, it's good for like the
course.
Yeah.
Well, let's see if it turns out or not, maybe I shouldn't be.
But I mean to get one of those. I just found the order one online, and then there wasn't one in the
I'm
store.
not talking it up, I'm saying what I'm gonna do.
They also have the like underdesk treadmills, but I'm tempted because it's expensive, and especially if you want one that's not going out,
right?
I think what you probably should have is just like a shared office space.
Yeah. Running all
Oh, that'd be
that.
fun.
So it's like, okay, I don't know when you're gonna be dropping, you know, out, maybe eventually, but
That's a
you're meant to
slim
more like walk,
Which one
not
Right.
jogging. You probably could, but they're like, you know, like a
But that's.
mini
He
board
wants to get out of the
that you
union because
have like a service that tracks.
he's done, like, he's got all his.
You know what you do is
credits
start
Oh,
with like a
okay.
tennis ball.
Yeah, but he wants.
Because they say you should have your foot on something when you're sitting down all day.
Yeah.
For like,
Yeah.
He's been doing it for like.
for your
20
mark,
years.
you use like a tennis ball for a
A
while.
lot of
Maybe go from
Yeah.
there.
I don't know why.
It might not be for you, who knows?
You kind of have a routine, don't you?
I think we just start.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have to.
Give
I used to
me
walk
one more minute.
3 miles a day.
Yeah.
Out in the field, probably. I didn't track it, but I'm just guessing.
Yeah.
Also looking stuff around the guitar. Yeah, exactly where it being, that like, this second.
What do you have to learn?
Actually, a good job.
Just tools?
Sometimes. Or my tools sometimes. I used to.
You had like a big tool belt?
Yeah. I enjoyed it though. I like it.
Tom used to be like, we don't need a crane, I'll just
Yeah,
carry
I
up
was carrying
the
on my back.
unit right up to the roof, right on my, throw it over my shoulder.
Yeah, we don't need to spend money
Yeah,
for a
you just need
crane.
like what?
That's a waste of money.
What's
$4,000?
Yeah.
Just say $4,000.
It's only a couple of tons. How many flights?
Do you want to wait a little longer to see more people show up?
Well, Brian said 1 minute, so I figured I'd wait for him to come back.
Okay.
more than me, more than anything, it's just as long as you much.
Yeah, it showed up like an hour before you did.
I like to make it come early, just in case I get lost, or, you know what I mean? I'm like, it's better, because it's not like it's, well, the warm stuff will get a little bit cold, but for the most part, they're sandwiches, so it's fine.
Yeah, but and it was all well organized.
Good, I'm glad. I like when it's well organized.
Exactly.
It's like,
Good.
it's like, yeah. They were also getting down tonight too, so.
All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining this afternoon. Thank you, Brian, for helping to organize this lunchroom today. Appreciate everybody's time and attention. I'm Dana Patano. I'm the Western Regional Manager for Hayes Fluid Controls. Maybe a quick show of hands who here in this room has heard of Hayes Fluid Controls? Which is Brian, because I keep emailing him and bugging him to come in. Okay, well, obviously it's going to change today. We work with a number of your partners here in the region. So as I mentioned, I cover the West. I'm located in Palm Springs, but I cover the entire Western region from Saskatchewan to Hawaii, everything in between.
And what we might not know is when we buy like water source heat pumps, a lot of times we get your
Kits.
yeah. Or those kits,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So you probably work with them, you just don't know because we work through Train Care, Sigler.
Exactly. ISAT, Norman S. Wright.
Yeah, there's the other one,
We think of all, yeah, so we work with a lot of partners in the Western region, but especially in Southern California. Just in this region, there's so many different reps. So Norman S. Wright, ISAT, Vertical Systems right here in Santa Fe Springs, Sigler, who else? I'm forgetting somebody. But yeah, air treatment also, Train you mentioned. We are a supplier to Carrier, Williams, Daikin, Applied as well, so kind of the gamut. And one of the reasons we do that, I just want to explain because we get this question from our customers a lot, like, why don't you go exclusive? And our feeling is that whoever wins the unitary side of it is usually going to get the hose kits and the piping packages, and usually you're not quoting hose kits for a job you didn't win. Because a lot of the reps want to be exclusive, and that's why we don't. So. With that said, you have a lot of options through the different rep firms, you know, source Hayes materials. I work really closely throughout this region with engineering firms to get spec'd in. We use some programs like SpecLink and Dodge, and we can see there where we're spec'd in. And often, if I find an opportunity where we haven't quoted, I'll then go to some of the reps and say, you should quote this. You know, Hayes is spec'd in here, you should go ahead and go after the opportunity. So I know that, you know, you are working with some of those rep firms that I've mentioned, and they often will come in and talk to you guys, but they're probably not getting into all the details about Hayes, so that's what I'm here for today, to just kind of give you a little bit of education on what makes Hayes different from some of the other hose kit providers, like a Nexus, for example, or Griswold. Those guys are kind of like the big names when it comes to balancing valves. But their technology is a little bit different, and we're going to kind of get into what's different and kind of what sets Hayes apart. But before we do that, I just want to kind of maybe lay a little groundwork in terms of when we're talking about like hose kits and piping packages and balancing valves. It's all related to the balancing in the HVAC system, so anything hydraulic. So everything we're going to talk about today is related to water. We don't do anything with refrigerants. We don't do air stuff. And certainly hose kits for air handler units, but in terms of carrying, we're carrying water. So with regard to that and talking about balanced valves, there's a number of different balance methods. Kind of the two most traditional, are you familiar with what they are? So manual balance and automatic balance valve. Often called calibrated would be on the manual side, or circuit setters. That's kind of actually a trade name for B&Gs, but it's kind of, I call it like a Kleenex, right? It's kind of synonymous, where people use it interchangeably. In fact, somebody requested an automatic circuit setter, which doesn't really exist, but they're talking about automatic flow control device is also automatic balancing. So sometimes these words are used interchangeably, but essentially you have manual balance valves, which could be called calibrated, or circuit setters, where you have automatic balance valves, which we call automatic flow control or flow limiting device. And I'm going to get into what the differences are between the two and why you choose one over the other in the next couple of slides. So with regards to that, But just quick little background on Hayes. So we've been around for a minute or two, since 1869. We've got business with the U.S. Navy with regard to these automatic balance valves. So what we're going to talk about a lot today is the automatic balance valves, and the origin of it is actually a really interesting story. You can find on our website about a captain doing an exercise in the North Sea and being discovered, this is a submarine, being discovered by the enemy as he was making coffee. So they went back and then they retrofitted these submarines with these Hayes valves. And so the balance valves that we sell into HVAC units were actually originally sold for submarines. So they were developed for submarines. So you see those little props that I put on your tables there? That is what was developed for the U.S. Navy to be quiet, to absorb vibration, because rubber will absorb that vibration. So that is how we got to start. So we actually started first with the submarines, and then they said, well, if it's good enough for a submarine, it's probably good enough for a middle school. So that's how that started. So the commercial side of the business came after the military side, and we still do quite a lot for the military. It's a whole sector of our business, military government work. We talk about things like BAA compliant. We have a whole line of BAA compliant products because we do quite a lot, as I mentioned, with the military. So everything that we're doing that we would supply to you is going to come out of our Dallas, North Carolina facility. This is maybe 20 minutes outside of Charlotte. Everybody in terms of manufacturing and engineering, they're all located in North Carolina. I'm the West Coast person, working West Coast hours, answering the phone after 2 p.m., answering lots of questions, but really like my customer service, engineering, are all going to be in North Carolina. Out of that facility, we're doing 250,000 valves a year. About half of that are 5 GPM and under. So 125,000 valves that are 5 GPM and under. So we talk about balancing, we talk about why you're going to balance to save energy, to increase your system stability, as I like to say, also your longevity. It's not just stability, but it's actually equipment longevity. And by reducing those maintenance issues, with a properly balanced system, you will have that system longevity. And then when we talk about noise, whether it be in a Hayes style or even a piston style, the piston style is going to create more noise. We're going to talk about that later. But a properly balanced system should reduce noise. You shouldn't hear a lot of kind of unnecessary pressure going through the pipes. So we talk about manual balance valves. Hayes does make manual balance valves as well. I mentioned the circuit setter. We don't do a circuit setter, but we have a Venturi style, which as you can see there is the insert. It's a Venturi insert. The idea is to kind of bring down that flow. So these inserts would be according to whatever the desired flow is. This is a manual balance style, and I'll show you a really nice simulation of two systems side by side and a couple slides. I mentioned earlier Griswold and Nexus. Griswold and Nexus have what they call a string style, and you can see where that string is sitting there. That's the Griswold or Nexus style, or IMI, flow design, HDI. And then this is the style that you see in front of you with the little diaphragm. That's the Hayes style. So we'll kind of talk about how that works. But before we do that, we're going to talk about the tab process. So with testing and balancing, on a manual system, manual balance valves, by the way, are pressure dependent. What that means is that you add or subtract any one of these units, it's going to affect the others, because the balance is going to change, because these are pressure dependent. So any change affects the other branches. So when you do the tab process, it's a 3-step process, and each unit will be balanced 3 times. So imagine in a building that has 800 units, think about the time that goes into balancing a manual system. And again, it is designed, or balanced rather, 100% design flow, so any change is going to upset the apple cart. It's going to upset the balance there. The thing is about manual balance systems in California, really interesting to me. You see it a lot still. It is kind of an older technology. It is also not the most efficient technology. In a state like California, I would expect to see it less. And I feel that I see it quite a lot in school settings, for example. A lot of schools. I went to Design West Engineering over in San Bernardino. So, well, that's because a lot of them are retrofit. Yeah, that's true, but I also see a lot of new plans for schools, elementary schools in particular, even high schools. I live in Palm Springs. They're building a whole Palm Springs campus of College of the Desert. It's all manual balance belts. The idea a lot of times with schools is, well, we have a facilities guy, we have a maintenance guy, and he can go and adjust it. That's great if he's doing that all the time, but something to think about. Yes.
Or a lot of the idea with these is to put the circuit setter in and you don't even set it, and you just have something to mess with.
Yeah.
If you go, if your system goes well or whack for a certain period of time, but it's not a long term.
Right.
It's something to turn and something to adjust, but if a lot of times I would rather have nothing instead of a circuit setter. Which is not the case for this, but you might be the case for
But
this.
but you know what, actually what you said, you're gonna see later on in the future slide that the economics agree with you. And there's some interesting papers that have talked about no balancing versus manual or automatic.
Not trying to.
No, please continue to do that
Circuit
because.
setters is that's the detail in our industry, yeah.
Yeah, so, anyway, what's interesting about the schools in California and the fact that they do the manuals so often, and it's funny, you know, you're saying circuit setters because I was in Hawaii a couple of weeks ago visiting some firms there, and I was reading all these specs before I went to go see WSP and some other firms, and I was like, oh, notice like Jacobs, for example, all their specs is circuit setter. And it's just circuit setter, it's not even like balance valve, it's just circuit setter. You know, lowercase, not like it's a brand name, it's just, this is a commodity, and you know, a lot of people think these are commodity products, but yeah, so they use them quite a lot, especially, you know, in a place like Hawaii where they're not necessarily writing new specs, a lot of the government specs are very old, they're just kind of recycling them. Well, my point about the schools is that in Seattle, the public schools and Seattle public school system, they are required to use automatic balance valves because their energy code is actually more stringent in Seattle than it is here in the entire state of California. So they are already a couple steps ahead. They're even using more tick valves up there as well. California still a little bit like slow to come to the table on that, but we're getting there. So with regard to automatic balance valves, the difference that you're going to see here now is in the tab process. You're not doing a three-step process. Instead of test and balance, it's test and verify, so it's a one-step. You're basically verifying the balance contractor, the tab contractor is going to come in and he's going to go, yep, this is at the, you know, the level it's supposed to be. It's a one-time thing. Like where you have a tab contractor in a scenario where there's no balancing at all, the only thing he's going to do is just checking flow, just to make sure the flow is there. But he's not balancing it, he's not making sure anything's balanced when you have a no-balance system. Which, you know, you don't see that too often, but in that scenario, that's where it would be. So with this, because unlike manual balance valves, automatic balance valves are pressure independent, meaning that they are all, so if you look at the little prop that I have in front of you, you'll see that there are cuts. You take the orifice plate, this is the orifice plate, and you look to see if there's some cuts in there. How many cuts do you guys see? Two?
Two, the ones on the sides, right?
Yep.
Yeah, two.
Okay, that's a 1 GPM. Yeah, so each cut is for half a GPM. We have 27 possible variations between the density of that rubber and the cuts in the plate, and they're all tied to the GPM. So whether it's something like this or that Griswold Nexus cartridge, they're all specific to the GPM, to the flow rate. So when I say that you're testing and verifying, the tab contractor is going to go in, is it at 4 GPM? Yes, it is. Okay, great. You don't have to retest it because it's already at that. It's not going to change. Again, it's pressure independent, meaning it will not change if you add another branch, if you take off another branch, it's going to stay at that level. That's the idea about automatic flow control, automatic balancing, is that they will constantly kind of self-adjust to maintain that flow. So you don't have to go in and you don't have to tweak it or not tweak it or whatever, it's there for you. One other thing similar to HVAC systems, when we think about domestic hot water systems, also need to be balanced. The example that I like to use because I relate to it so well is when you think about a hotel. And I usually try to stay on the top floor because I don't like to listen to people walking over me. And the top floor sometimes when you turn on the shower, the water is not hot right away. And that is a system that is not properly balanced. So with Marriott, for example, they have a requirement that the hot water has to get to the top floor within 8 seconds. I think in hospitals, it's like 6 seconds. So for these domestic hot water applications, we do offer an automatic balance valve, which is lead-free and NSF 61 certified, and that would be applicable for this application. We do not have I think it's a flow meter. There's a specific device that somebody had asked about related to that domestic hot water application that I think it's like a circuit solver, for example.
We don't do plumbing.
Okay.
So you can say whatever you want, it doesn't matter.
I wasn't sure because I was on your website looking at all the projects, and you guys have done some really cool projects, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, it was so cool, and actually a bunch out by me in Rancho Mirage and
Yeah.
Eisenhower and all that.
Yeah.
Like the TikTok one was really cool. Like just some of the projects you've done have been really cool. But I did see detail around plumbing, so thank you for.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is.
You can talk to us about it, but we just you're not
It's
gonna
all right. You know, it's sometimes a mixed bag. I did one lunch and learn one time where there were more plumbing people in the room than not, and I was like, I've never been outnumbered by plumbing people, but. You know.
Usually there's like 2 to every time.
Yeah, usually, exactly, yeah. So this video that I was referencing is a simulator that we created in our factory in North Carolina, and they showed this to me on like day 1 of training, and as soon as I saw this, I was like, this is a no-brainer. It just seems so simple and obvious. But what you're gonna see on the right side is a manual balance system, and on the left side is an automatic balance system. And as I mentioned about how when you turn off any of these branches, you're gonna see that then you're gonna have more kind of flow to the other branches. And the idea is that that is unnecessary flow, right? Because that's savings that could go back to the pump, and instead they're going here when they don't need to. So you'll see that. Hopefully the video will work. Sometimes it doesn't like to work. I think today's our lucky day.
Right now, I'm going to demonstrate to you the difference between automatic and manual balancing and hydronic systems. Our system simulator is built as a dual riser system. Mirrored left and right side, manual balance on the right side, automatic balance on the left side. System is laid out with set resistances to represent length of pipe. Each branch has a length of pipe resistance, a strainer, a resistance to represent a heat exchanger, a manual balance valve, on-off temperature control valve, more resistance, and then a float style flow meter. Each branch is designed to be at 2 GPM. What I'm going to do is start the pump, similar to system startup. System is wide open. As the pump ramps up, branch closest to the pump has the least resistance, so it has the greatest flow. Branch farthest from the pump has the most resistance, so it has the least flow. As we come into balance, we probe across our ports on the manual balance valve. We set differential pressure. In this case, we're going to balance to our flow meter. And you'll see that as we set additional resistance to the first branch, we're increasing flow to all the other branches. Move on to the second branch, adjust to 2 GPM, continue third branch, fourth branch. Generally, it takes about 3 balancing efforts to each valve. We continue on. Now our system is balanced at 100% flow. As our comfort settings are met and the thermostat turns off, we'll turn off the first branch. And one of the drawbacks of manual balancing is it can't compensate. Now there's higher pressure and we're seeing higher flow across the remaining branches. Furthermore, we'll turn off the next branch. And you see we get even more flow to the third and fourth branches. We're not getting additional comfort, but we are losing that pump energy that we're just wasting by overflowing the system. Now we're going to look at the automatic balance side. Same condition at system startup. Pump is turned on the first time. Now as the pump spools up, pressure increases in the system, and once the automatic balance valves reach their required differential pressure, they'll deliver the set design flow. As you can see, everything comes in at 2 GPM. no multiple balancing attempts, it comes in automatically. Now I will say one thing, we're using Hayes combination valves for the demonstration. We do not have the electronic actuators on them just for a little ease. I'm going to use just a manual lever arm to turn off the valve. Similar to what we showed with the manual side, as comfort gets met, thermostat turns off. Now with automatic balancing, we've held our 2 GPM set point. We turn off another branch. Again, the automatic valves adjust, balance the flow. So now we're at design flow to all the open branches. We're meeting our comfort requirement, and we have that additional energy savings by not overflowing the pump. Now you've seen how manual balance valves can't control the system flow due to the interaction of other branches turning on and off. It's leading to poor flow conditions and an overflow condition at the pump. You've also seen how the automatic valves were able to hold the flow at design flow no matter how many branches cycled on and off. Clearly, automatic balance valves keep the system in balance at all design conditions.
It's on-off control, right? So if you had a control valve going between 0 and open, this would work as a flow limiter, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. Because so just to build on that, when I was talking
That's
about,
good.
yeah. So when I was talking about the cuts, right? So these are like this one is 1 GPM. That means that it will not allow more than 1 GPM. This is kind of like, very low flow, obviously. So anything below 1 GPM is just going to be kind of hanging out there in the valve body. But as you get closer to that 1 GPM, it's going to start to compress. And it would not allow like 1.5 GPM, for example. So it's always designed up to. And then anything below that is just kind of hanging out, sitting there. As the pressure increases, that's when the plate and the diaphragm come together. So, what you mentioned earlier, Brian, about sometimes, just going with a no balance system, and I said, yeah, you're onto something there. We did a case study, and in the case study, what we looked at was the system with 2 primary and secondary pumps. These were inline chillers with these primary pumps, and we looked at it 3 ways. And the 3 ways are basically fully open, no balance, manually balanced, and an automatic balance system. And what we wanted to do is look at the economics of that to kind of prove out, what would be a more efficient, more efficient option. And as I mentioned, when we're balancing these systems, they're balanced for 100% design flow, but that's not realistic to true life scenario. So what we did is we looked at some system load profiles, and what we found is the majority of the time, you're actually at that 30 to 60% design load, and maybe only 2% of the time are you at that 100%. So there's a little bit of a flaw, really, in the way systems in a manual system are balanced, but that is the way it is. So when we kind of took that data and looked at if that's kind of the breakdown of how this is working, how's it going to look in operation? And what we found, Brian, to your point, is that a system that is fully open and not balanced is actually a little bit more economical than a variable speed pump manual balance system. What we also found is that an automatic balance system actually saves you about $3,000 to $4,000 a year. Now, keep in mind, that's 10 cents a kilowatt hour. In California, it's probably about 3 times that. So if you think about that number, and I said 3,000 or 4,000, multiply that by 3, so you're saying 9,000 per one system there. And you then think about the lifetime of the equipment being possibly 20 years, and you think about 9,000 times 20, that's a pretty big number. Because right about now, somebody's going to ask how much is the price difference between a manual balance valve and an automatic balance valve. I can tell you it's a lot less than the difference between $9,000 a year. So to answer the question, it would be about 10 to 15% higher on an automatic balance valve versus manual. Again, if you look at the calculations there, you can see that that would really be very easily absorbed.
2 questions. Well, 1 question and 1 observation, which is interesting. So, is there a reason they didn't run it with variable speed pumping for the fully open no balancing?
I don't know. It's a good
Okay.
question. Let me take it down.
Or
and get back to you.
that would be, I think that would be one of the more common ways
Okay.
of operating like a EAV Liberty system or a heating hot water system.
Okay.
And the second that's interesting is that manual balancing variable speed pumping performs worse than fixed speed pumping. And I would have expected poorer performance, but maybe not worse energy. So,
Yeah, it is a little surprising. I think it has to do with startup, right?
yeah.
We have had a discussion about that. I believe that was the feedback.
Well, but this is operation cost, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know, interesting.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, essentially, when you kind of think about efficiency on a large scale, when it comes down to the dollars and cents of it all, it really would be a more economical option. Because as you can see in that video, when on the right side, they turn off these and he said, well, listen, like, the water and is just looking for somewhere else to go. It's going to go to those other units which don't need it, right? So that's the idea. Is like you're kind of losing that efficiency, and nobody wants to be doing that right now. Especially, I know, like I said, in Palm Springs, the electricity rates are so high in the summer. That's why I'm like, why are they building a college campus with a manual balances? This is my challenge. So when we talk about the kind of selections of materials, they really were selected specifically for kind of the attributes of something as simple as plastic and rubber. I used to work in the chemical industry. I spent a lot of time talking about temperatures, surface temperatures. So that has a lot to do with why these particular materials were selected for this application, because this is EPDM rubber, which is highly temperature stable. It's also highly stable in glycol systems. So we're working with some manufacturers in the refrigerant, like refrigerated display section, like Costco, Walmart, those guys, with the whole refrigerant change, are in some cases choosing glycol systems instead of refrigerant systems. So we have low temperature valves that we make specifically for those applications. And again, it has to do with the materials being kind of suited for that. So it's basically plastic and rubber, to put it simply. And I kind of talked a little bit about how it works with regard to as the pressure increases, you're going to see that diaphragm press against the orifice plate. You can see the direction of flow. And what you can actually see is kind of as I was talking about, as you're getting closer to that design limit, you see kind of the space there. It's getting tighter and tighter. You can do reverse flow as well. It's not an issue. With a spring-style device, that would actually void the warranty because it would script the piston if you insert it in the wrong direction. But in here, these are kind of just some images of some of those styles that I was mentioning from like a Nexus, Griswold, IMI, etc. One of the things that I see when I look at this is like a lot of potential for sludge, things to get clogged. We hear that a lot. In terms of complaints about automatic flow control devices, the most common thing I hear in terms of why people are using manual instead of an automatic flow control is for something like, well, the spring clogged. And sometimes I've heard that happening pretty early on, like in even a tap process, as you're kind of reminding me that you see that.
Or if we haven't, I've never heard of us doing this.
Yeah,
but if
others.
the contractor
It's
hasn't
a
properly
competition.
flushed the system, you could get something. If you have a line size control valve that's going to let it go through the coil, which maybe, if you get caught on your pressure independent control valve or your control device.
Yeah.
Or automatic fluid control.
Yes.
There we go.
Yeah. So that is a feedback that when we get pushback about automatic bounce valves, it's because, oh, well, they clog up. I'm like, yeah, but not that would be a spring style, and there's reasons why they clog. One of the reasons is because of those crevices.
This will clog too, right?
Not really. We've done some clogging tests and we have not had that. We had one instance where it clogged and there was so much sludge, it was literally sludge.
Okay.
And in that situation, nothing.
So less able to clog than
Yeah,
that.
it's, we've done tests that we've proved out where these devices have actually clogged after about 3 hours.
Oh.
We introduced these iron filings, we can show you some of that coming up. But anyway, with regard to the automatic flow control, we do sometimes hear clogging and rusting be an issue. There's nothing in that can rust because PPM doesn't rust and plastic doesn't rust. But yeah, like metal could rust. Springs could rust. Springs do fatigue, so like over time it's just going to stop working. And that's why they have a 5-year warranty. We actually have a lifetime warranty on those parts, and we haven't had any warranty claims. Again, I mentioned they've been in submarines for decades. Pumping up seawater, missile bay cooling, no issues there. We also have a larger operating range, so those springs have a smaller operating range, which means you have to think about, pressure calculations and say tall buildings like we're thinking about. Because it is a wide range, it's not like you have specific routes that we need to get this particular device for that smaller operating range. So it's more adaptable. Also, as I mentioned, the reason why we developed this was for the submarine, right? And the submarine obviously needs something to be quiet and not provide a lot of vibration. So we can do that because I mentioned like the rubber is self-dampening, so it's absorbing both the noise and the vibration. Obviously, anything with the spring is going to make noise. And we did some tests to kind of prove that out, decibel ratings actually. So we kind of talked about the clog prone, the clog resistant. I mentioned we can do the back flush. You can't do that on a spring. So with the noise test that I was talking about, this is something, it's actually a test that we've done for the Navy. So we have this like bench test, like all these tests we have to do every year to requalify, always be recertified for the Navy. So this is one of the tests. And in this test, we've only got about 8 PSI in here, right? But you can see that these are all spring steps. So competitor A, B, C are all spring devices. And you can see at only 8 PSI, the main one's at about just about 30 decibels. We are right here in line with the pipe itself, so we did a chart. So then we increased the pressure to 48 PSI. At 48 PSI, you can see that that pink one's at about 46, 47 decibels. It's kind of loud. We did chart, and what you're going to see here is we're in line again with the pipe. And actually what you're hearing is the rushing of the water through the pipe. So that is the sound that's going through there. But you can really see quite a big difference. So it's about 30 decibel difference. Pretty significant. Especially when you think about things like hotel rooms. Hotel rooms, like for me, honestly, sometimes I turn off the air conditioner if it's too loud. For real. I've done it so many times. And usually when I'm calling the reps, they're like, which hotel was that? Where'd you turn off the air conditioning? We're going to go there. I'm like, you should. It's really loud, really annoying. I was like in Hawaii and it's hot. You need air conditioning. And it's too loud. It's not a good thing. And those are the top complaints. Like when we talk to Marriott, so we work a lot directly with like Marriott. We are actually class spec to Marriott, so we work with Marriott, Hilton. And when we talk to like Marriott, they say that most important customer criteria are hot water has to get to the shower within 8 seconds. Sound, so the rooms need to be quiet. We also want to have good Wi-Fi speed, fast Wi-Fi, and then temperature, comfort, right? And so we feel that we can address 3 of the 4. We don't do anything on Wi-Fi. We don't plan to. We work on the other things. And then to your point about the clogging, so as I said, we did this clog resistance test, and for this test, we introduced these iron fillings in there at about 3.66 ounces an hour. We stopped the test after 3 hours because all of those spring devices did fail. We just completely stopped working. There was no reason to continue the test. So 3 hours, about 10 ounces of particulate. What it did is it fouled the water. It caused these devices to clog up. Took some photos to kind of show what they look like post-test. You can kind of see some of those iron filings there. And then I have a photo here. This is what ours looked like. It didn't impede. I don't know why it's so light with color, but a little bit darker. Anyway, you can kind of see in the top there's some accumulation, but it didn't stop the operation because, again, these are kind of separate pieces, so as it floats, it's not tied in there.
What's the red dot on here?
Everybody asks that. It's actually just for our internal, selecting. So They are tied to the density of the rubber, because I mentioned like there's 27 variations, so there's 3 rubber densities, but it's just for the people in the factory to know which one to pick. So it's not.
So you can put it in.
You can put it in either way, and eventually it's going to wear off.
And then the number means something?
Yeah, it's
As
tied
far
to the
as the
density.
setting?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Exactly.
color and the numbers, you know.
It's just for our internal, but like, but yeah, no, it doesn't, you can install it whether the dot is on top or on bottom, it doesn't make a difference. One of the other things I did want to mention, because we get this question a lot, is what if the flow rate changes? No problem. Send you one of these, and you just pop it out, just open, open this up, and you're just gonna pop this in, and you just replace it. So as long as the valve body.
This is in that bag?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly, so you're gonna get a bag like this, got this IOM instructions for operation and maintenance and all that, it'll come just like that, labeled, and then you just replace it. I get that question all the time. So, just kind of, again, touching on the kind of main points, again, it's about the savings at the end of the day, so that we're trying to provide savings, trying to be more efficient. Obviously, it's not just about money, we want to be more sustainable too. That's an added bonus. The system stability, obviously, your customers want to have a system that runs efficiently, but also consistently, right? So system stability is important. The noise, nobody wants to be in a noisy office, hotel room, library, dorm, et cetera, hospital, TikTok office. And then the maintenance issues, and those are additional costs. Yes?
So another item between pressure dependent and pressure independent.
Yeah.
Usually with these spring pressure independent balancing valves, you need to have a certain amount of pressure to make water. Is this, you need a certain amount of pressure to get to a certain flow? I think this kind of fixes that. Thought being, if you have an open pipe, you can reset your pressure down lower than if you have a spring to overcome. This doesn't really have a spring.
Right.
Because it's,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think that's a benefit over the spring pressure independent devices.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I'm going to add that in.
Or assuming it doesn't have that same restriction, but that's
Right.
one of the other gripes against pressure independent devices is you need to have a certain pressure at the end of your loop to flow water properly. Sorry, I'm doing a lot of talking,
Oh,
but this is interesting to me. I think it's helpful, and if not, it'll be done in an hour.
Less than an hour.
Yeah.
I'm wrapping up, don't worry, only a few more slides. No, but I appreciate you kind of providing context to it too.
Yeah.
Always helpful for me. I can do lots of lunch and learns all over, and it's always really helpful to get comments, especially in different regions, because like I was mentioning in Seattle, so I've learned that by talking to an engineer in Seattle, and it's like you hear different things in different places, and it's really interesting to share stories. Like I was mentioning, this tab person said to me that they were having logging issues in their tab process, because as you mentioned, they're running through a lot of construction debris. And so when she said that at tab, I was like, that seems early. And then she explained that, and I mentioned that to other contractors, and they go, oh yeah, we see that too.
And so then there's like strainers.
Yeah.
And like coil kits, and then
Yeah.
you're cleaning out strainers. And
Yeah.
then you've got another, does that mean this doesn't need a strainer? Coil kit?
We do strainers, it's optional, it's up to the customer, sometimes they want it, sometimes they don't, but, yeah, so we offer like a complete assembly, so whether it's manual air vent, for example, extended handles, we'll do extended handles, you can do a whole variety, we do a lot of customizing, so like, I wouldn't even say that we have standard sizes, but really our standard hose length would be 12, 18 inches, 24, 36, but we can do less than 12, we can do more than 48. Not common that you get a request for more than 48, but we can do it. We have that ability. Even with like the piping packages for like a VAV, we can customize that as well. One of the things that is pretty unique with these is that we will install other people's control valves. So my understanding is that the competitors will not do that, but we can do a whole kit. So whether it's, this really pretty VAV package on a nice skim board, or it's a hose kit. We will install a Belimo valve, we can do a Schneider valve. We've got a whole bunch of these heavy things here, which would be great weapons. And get out of my car, you know, anybody messes with me. But anyway, yeah, so all of this stuff like is really very customizable, and the control valves, the fact that we do have them in the house also helps with the turnaround time, because we know like a lot of times it's either, oh, we have to order this, or we ordered the wrong thing or whatever, and we're doing the install next week. We have a 5-day lead time. So, and we can also do expedited. So if 5 days is too long, we can do a 24, 48-hour kind of option.
So you said a circuit setter is Bell and Gossett,
Yes.
like basically Kleenex.
Yes.
type of-
Yeah.
But basically all it is an automatic balancing valve.
It's not automatic, that's manual.
That's manual, so it's manual.
And Armstrong's got one, there's
Yep.
10 different manual balancing valves. There's
Yeah.
not 10, there's maybe 5, but
Okay.
Yeah, Griswold, like, so a lot of times I was mentioning Griswold. There are
Griswold's
so
the-
many specs in
yeah, they're the
California.
famous.
Because they're, yeah, they are. I mean, they're based in Irvine, I believe, right? So they're based in California, so there are like tons of California specs. Typically, it's for manual. You're gonna see, it's gonna say like calibrated, bronze calibrated balance valve or something. But it's always, maybe when I say bronze, but it always say calibrated balance valve. It's always usually Griswold when it's a school spec. They've done a lot of work on that. I'm trying to change that, but yeah, they're always, yeah, that's, so if you think circuit center, you're gonna see B&G, Nibco, Armstrong, Watt, and Griswold, and sometimes Nexus, but not as much Nexus on the manual.
And looking at these, I see one side has kind of like a,
It's like a bevel, right?
yeah, is
In the
that,
plastic?
Yeah, that's the word is
Okay.
cut. That's the
Okay.
cut. That's tied to the GPM. So you only see one or you see two there?
well, I see two little notches, but one has this little bell,
Yep.
if that makes sense.
It has like a bevel on one side, on the bottom.
one side is bigger than the other.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, it's like very nice.
Looks pretty
Just
good.
thought it was interesting.
I noticed that too.
Yes. Yeah, you're right.
These components ever malfunction? Like, could this guy turn like that? No, it's not possible.
I don't think there's enough room inside the valve body.
Oh, that's what I figured,
Yeah.
yeah, because this wouldn't even give you a chance to.
Yeah,
for it
I want to
to-
see if I can take off one of the caps to kind of show you how it sits.
If you can show them that, I think that'll help everyone.
Yeah, let me find one where I can, you know, I opened one of these the other day. Some of them are on real tight.
Even if we don't open it, just to see where it's, how it sits in the paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that?
Very, not in a long time. As a kid, I played roller hockey.
I
But
bet this feels like a hockey puck.
Oh, that's what, yeah, they often are called hockey pucks. Or fidget spinners,
Yeah.
tops, you know, like, because they do make good tops, you can spin for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, exactly, that's, I
You can
usually
barely
leave
keep
them,
it.
and I'm usually like, if you keep it when you're bored, or you're on a call, and you're just kind of like sitting there, play with the top, because it doesn't
You
always
kind of see the bubble
do
in
its
the
thing that easily, you know, so it's a little bit of a challenge.
water.
Yeah. I'm gonna try to roll one of these so I can show you, but,
Like a
Bevel?
yeah, like maybe, I guess like.
yeah, so that's kind of the gist of it all. I just want to show you some body styles. So these are some different valve body styles. You can see like inline, we're just kind of showing you here since we were today, right? So I mentioned like the lead-free for domestically, not doing pumping, but that's 2517. So that's a wide body style. We've got the combo. We've got, as I mentioned, some inline valves. The inline valves go all the way up to 36 inches. This is not the 36-inch one, but we do a 36-inch valve, 35,000 GPM. That's for like hydrodams, things like that. So that's an insertion valve that should go right into the pipe itself. So our parent company does a lot when it comes to like water, piping, fittings, things like that. So I think that's kind of where that came from.
which way does the water flow on that?
This is crazy.
So if it's gonna go in that way, I think the water's going in that.
Like vertical? Or side to side?
It's
Let's go from the bottom.
It's
It's bottom up, right? It's, and those are the flow control devices, the black things.
yeah, so instead of them, you know, inside, on this is on the outside.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's big.
It is big, and that's not the full, that's not the 35,000 one. That one is so big, it just takes up an entire pallet. It's huge. I really like to sell them. Really would like to sell butterfly valves as well, so we can do some really large ones. So like this is to show you this is the, and again, this is not the largest one, but to give you an idea. So we could go 10 inches, 6 inches, whatever. So, and a 10-inch or a 6-inch valve, we're going to see this concept of them being on the outside. They would be on the inside, but there would be a bunch of them. Because again, the idea is like, so say these are like 2, you might have, obviously it's more than 2, but say you have like 100 sheet pan flow, then you're going to take a bunch of those and put them on the inside. I think Griswold does a wafer style, that's our version of a wafer
So
style.
that right there, what looks like barnacle or something?
Yeah, that's what I call it. That's, yeah.
Those are a bunch of those little things?
Yeah, but they're different because again, this is more of an industrial application, so you can see there's like some metal on that.
Got it.
But it's the same idea. So also I feel like the cups are a little bit bigger on those.
Right.
Again, it's the same concept.
So with the larger, so you can just have one big puck on like a, or am I thinking in, or you have to do something like this?
It kind of depends on, like, this one, because you're looking for such a large flow, you couldn't do one big puck. So there's a limitation on the puck size.
But most of what we would do is a VAV, which would be 5 GPM or less. So it would be something, it would just be one.
Yeah, like this is a VAV and
Or
it's 1.5.
a single one of these is going to be one to, like, when you max out a puck. Above
Technically
5.
above 5.
Well above 5
Yeah.
GPM, right?
Yeah, so you're going to be in that space, yeah.
Don't look at that.
Yeah.
We're not going to.
I mean, if you want to find a customer for that, please look at that.
Yeah. We don't have
We'll
to
go
do
halvesies
this,
on the
that's
commission, but we do also lead-free, that's an option. I wanted to mention stainless steel because we're seeing a lot. I don't know, I know you did like kind of one data center over, I saw the picture, it was a great picture on the website, but I don't know if you're doing a lot.
We don't do a lot. We do some with their existing customers and retrofits of them,
Yeah.
but we're not, the data center side of things is going nuts. We're not doing that.
Okay.
That's not our wheelhouse.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, it is, but.
We are seeing like a lot of stainless steel valves being used now in data centers, so we can do that as well. And a lot of times we're getting requests for domestic stainless steel valves that are adjustable. Anyway, that's just something on that side. Water cooled VRF, we're seeing a rise in that. I actually just did a quote this morning for a job in San Diego for water cooled VRF. We feel like we see that more maybe in San Diego, we see a lot of them in the back northwest. That's an option too. So we talked about the hose kits, the piping packages, obviously custom fees. So not only are they fully assembled, but we pressure and leak test everything also. So that is our standard operating procedure. It's not an extra charge or anything like that. That's how we, before we send it out, everything's tested underwater in the pressure and leak test. And we mentioned everything is going to be tagged. In this case, we have a stainless steel dog tag on it, which is an option. I had a customer request that the other day. They really like them. They also really like that it's just on this board and you can grab it and go. Make it nice and easy. Sometimes though, customers will say, no, we have our own controls contractor. We don't need you to do the control valve. Just give us the parts. No problem, we can do that. When we create the quote, we'll create a submittal. And in that case, it would show that it's not included. So if it was included, this part would be populated. This is just a kind of submittal to show you, in this case, it's a VAE package, and we didn't include the control valve. Sometimes they're like, no, we don't want Belimo or Schneider, we want GCI or we want Siemens. You can do that as well, you just ship them to us and they'll install it. So this is just an example, again, of an engineered solution that was kind of custom for the space with the piping. And this is an example of a 6-way valve for either a chilled beam or like a 4-pipe fan coil, for example. I don't know if you guys do much with chilled beams. Nobody usually says yes. I did it. I did a lunch and learn at P2S in Long Beach. There was one guy who's like, I use them all the time. I said, you're the one person. Nobody else ever says that they use them.
We talk about them a lot,
Oh, really?
but they don't happen as often as
They were popular about 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
They're very tough now.
Even P2S talked about them a lot. I'm sure they've done, or P2S is
Yeah,
great.
and they're like, they're typically like lab stuff from my understanding, which I know P2S is a good amount of, but
Usually low load.
low load.
Yeah.
well,
It's
I assume for like, yeah, a certain type of I saw them for like education labs, basically, like school science facilities.
Yep. That's true.
But yeah, I
The
haven't
one
looked
time I
into
saw a
those.
project was for something like that.
Yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Not even too much, but I know, all those things I know, P2S does a good amount of different work, and I work in schools, and I can see there being someone who, that one person I could imagine.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you're absolutely right too. I'm sorry, because what I was gonna say is that the two jobs we quoted with Chilbeans were schools, but they were science labs. Well, you know, so it was for USC, the Discovery Center there, and OSU, Oregon State, and it was their like science center. So that's exactly it. Yeah. And then there's some like middle school somewhere in Alberta that said they're doing it too. Okay. Sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
No, it's probably labs are very heavy air science systems.
Yeah.
So the chilled beam aspect of the lab is normally because it's just expensive, so you can do something cool energy saving in them with it. I think that's why they get packaged with labs. Because they usually have airside valves, exhaust and supply. And chilled beams max out about like 12, 13 BTUs a foot, which is not a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That's interesting. Yeah, so that's something, I mean, I haven't gone to town with this, but we like to mention it because it's just another thing in the toolbox. So this is my last slide. And I kind of already touched on this, but basically, we have a 5-day lead time. We offer expedited options, whether it be shipping or manufacturing. We have all these wonderful people in North Carolina, and I'm here in California. So if you have any questions, you have my card. You can give me a call. The engineering team is great, quality team. Like, it's a really small company, but really dedicated. So we are privately owned. We have kind of a long history of ownership with the same family for a long time. So the company is very stable, but also because they are small, they're pretty very flexible in terms of being able to do things quickly. I've worked at many companies. I've worked in manufacturing for 20 years. I've never worked anywhere with a 5-day lead time. That is like unheard of, especially when you pair that with a 99.7% on-time delivery rate. And like we just ordered did a huge order for Canada. They got the order in last night and said we'll have it shipping by Wednesday. It's a really big job. So we are really good about staying to those lead times and expediting if needed. Like I did a job at ASU. They ordered the wrong size hoses. So they needed to order all new hoses, like 180 hoses. And we were able to turn that around in one day. So we really do always try to meet the customer demands, especially being on the West Coast. Like we understand there's transit time too. And we do offer kind of next day shipping because quite often they're like, no, we need it tomorrow. So.
Do you stock any of this stuff,
Yeah.
or it's all
Yeah.
like it's going to be stocked locally at some of these places, right?
Yes, yeah, Norman S. Wright actually does a ton of stocking, so if you work with them, they, on a monthly basis, just kind of replenish.
The one vendor I didn't list, have you guys got?
Yeah. Uh-oh, I won't tell them.
Yeah.
We'll not tell them that. But like ISAT does some stocking as well. Sigler also does stocking, actually. Sigler does a lot of stocking, but I would say Norman S. Wright probably does the most in terms of stocking. They just kind of, every month, place regular orders, so, and they have all sizes.
So Norman, you mentioned all these vendor
Yeah.
houses or whatever. They only carry your guys' hose kits, or do they carry a bunch of other ones?
Norman S. Wright might carry some others, not really sure. See, it depends. So with Norman S. Wright, you know, depending on the location also.
Okay.
They work with other partners like in NorCal, they work with Griswold, I think, in Northern California. Not sure who other hose kits they might be using in Anaheim or in San Diego, but I know they do a lot. We do a lot of them, so I can't speak to that. Again, we're not exclusive with anyone, so we can't really be mad at that if they're not exclusive with us, you know?
Yeah.
So
That makes sense.
it's just like, you know, we want to be accessible and provide varieties because, you know, maybe you guys have a better relationship with ISAT, or maybe you don't like ISAT, you're like, we don't want to work with them. You know,
But we can buy directly from,
we don't sell direct to contractors, we only sell through the rep firms, yeah. Yeah, and I get calls all the time, and they're like, oh, sorry. It really pisses off my customers if I do that, you know?
Right.
Yeah. Well, we do sell direct to the OEMs, like I mentioned, like the Train and the Williams and things like that.
Or I don't know that I don't think we buy case coil kits unless they're packaged with the OEM currently. And I'm not saying that, I'm just saying that I think that's the state of things. Usually we're working with like UTAC or who are, I don't know, I'm trying to think of where a coil kit, NIPCO or, I don't know, I don't think we've bought Hayes unless it's packaged with like a water source heat pump from somebody, but maybe I just don't know, or I said engineering, so.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, like that's kind of why we don't usually go exclusive is because to your point, like if St. Marina's Right doesn't get the fan coils, they probably won't quote the hose kits. I mean, they sometimes will, but not always, you know, and they are better about quoting more things, they do quote a lot, but sometimes it doesn't.
So I know we're over, but I have one more question.
Yeah.
And then, or after that, I'll only ask you questions, not for everybody. Well, for some reason, I don't think of this as something with VAV boxes. I think of this as like a fan coil or water source heat pump hose kit. I guess because we don't do those kits on VAVs a lot of the time, but we still do circuit setters. We still have coil connections. Why is that? And is that just me?
No. So like we actually just did a job with VAV where we did some hoses. So it's not that common, but sometimes it is required, you know, depending on the number of factors. So for the VAV, it is usually the piping packages, but sometimes they'll have a hose component somewhere in there.
But even if we don't do hoses, I don't think of using this with a VAV.
Why? Oh, is it because of the control valve?
Yeah. Well, and that's because heating hot water, we just don't think about it in California. But yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, so it's interesting because I would say like kind of full circle there with when I think about Train, for example. So Train, we sell directly to the customer, to the factory. So it would be factory installed, factory mounted, or we sell to all the local Train offices, Train Brea, wherever. Okay. In some cases, it actually is better for them to order from the sales office because it can be shorter than their internal stuff. But we do a lot more on the hose kit side, so you're absolutely right. We don't do as much on the VAV side.
And I don't know why, it's just interesting, or that's just how I think of this product.
Yeah, and maybe, again, because of the VAV, also, sometimes there's more factory mounted on the VAV side, so I don't know if it's a case where things have already been factory installed, or it's just you're doing a fully open, fully closed kind of control valve scenario, and they feel like, sometimes we see that, you know, like even some jobs where they're like, well, we have a pick valve, so we're not even going to use any balance valves at all, we're just going with the pick valve. That does happen. See that quite a bit. Pick valves are a lot more expensive though than an automatic bounce valve. So that is like going to be the most precise, but also the most expensive option. But yeah, if you see a pick valve, a lot of times you don't even have a manual bounce valve. We're just like, we're just going to let the pick valve do all the work. So, yeah. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
We're good.
So like, I I've never gotten applause before. Please take some swag. Please do. You get some shirts, you get some nice tumblers, hats. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.